Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the talk show associated with the Journal on Asian Legal Policy and Sustainable Development, which we are publishing this year. First, let me start off by saying Happy New Year! 2025 is finally here. 5 more years and it is 2030. I can't believe time is passing so fast. But this year is very significant to us at Horizon Campus, especially the Faculty of Law of Horizon Campus, because we are publishing the first ever journal on Asian legal policy and sustainable development, an interdisciplinary publication platform which we are opening up to you. Developing on the first episode, where we spoke about the journal, its vision, and the importance of creating ecosystems of research within universities, today we are going to sort of extend upon that discussion and talk a little bit about doing student research. So, the title or the topic for today's discussion is Diving into Student Research Perspectives of Undergraduate Student Researchers. So with me, we have four undergraduate student researchers, and all four of them are part of the student oversight committee for the journal. Let me start by introducing them. First, we have Ms. Dulandi Ranaraja, who is the head of research and policy of the student oversight committee of the journal. And next, we have Ms. Mindu Hapangama, who is the head of logistics and operations of the student oversight committee. Then, of course, we have our two big bosses, that's Mr. Sakila Bandara, the co-chairperson of the Student Oversight Committee, and then we have Ms. Tharili Vijay Singha, who is also the co-chairperson. So they're both co-chairpersons of the committees. Now, let's dive straight into the discussion. Why is student research important? And I really want to have a conversation with the four of you on how we engage in student research and really promote student research within universities. Now, all four of you are currently following your LLB here at Horizon Campus, the University of London LLB. And I think the four of you are perfect in terms of, as undergraduate students, to share how perhaps difficult it is or how perhaps manageable it is to conduct student research. So I would love to direct the first question to Mindu. So Mindu, one of the biggest challenges of doing student research is discovering what the research problem is. What is it that you want to research on? What is it that you want your first publication to be on? That's often the biggest challenge for first-time researchers. As an undergraduate law student who is also studying in parallel at another institution, as someone who is active within student movements itself, I would love to know your thoughts on finding inspiration for research from one's professional journey or one's personal life. Would love to know your thoughts.
Thank you, Miss. As you said, the biggest issue that I see within the student body when it comes to research is like selecting a suitable topic to conduct the research on. When it comes to that, yes, we should drive inspiration through your personal experience to come up with like a good topic, because then you are passionate about like whatever topic that you are doing, whatever research that you're doing, you have passion in it. Another thing that I really want to emphasize is that as a student, you don't have to like stick to like the degree that you are doing in order to like conduct a research. That's not a must. It can be like a simple inspiration from like something in your personal life, or something that you see when you are like traveling in the bus, or like walking to school or coming to university, something on the way. Again, for example, recently I did a project called Asking for It, which is like an advocacy program against like sexual assault and victim blaming. That inspiration behind that came from like my personal experience and like the experience of like my friends and my family. That inspired me to conduct this project. In the same way, it can be the more you are personally connected with the topic, I believe the research is better. Other than that, please don't overcomplicate the topic. It doesn't have to be like some overcomplicated equation or some, you're trying to like find the solution for cancer. It doesn't have to be like that. For example, one of my friends, she saw a movie, this Korean movie where like this child was born in prison. And then that triggered her thought process to think about, okay, what is it like for like a child in like who was born in like juvenile prison? What is it like? and that drove her to like do an entire research regarding that topic. So it can be something as simple as that, as simple as like watching a movie and thinking, oh, what happens, what happens, that's the question, the question of what I want to research about this. That inspiration can come within like what's around you, your environment, a single thought. So please don't overcomplicate your research. Don't think that you have to stick to one topic, stick to like one field. Open your mind, look at your surrounding, look at your calling. So to answer your question in short, I believe when it comes to research and selecting a topic, it should start with you. Start with what interests you. Start with what triggers your own curiosity. Yes.
I think anyway, a first research is often a very self-reflective one, and it's inspired by perhaps something that, as Mindu mentioned, something you have gone through in your life or something that you have observed. And I think Mindu's answer is very unique and applicable to humanities and social sciences, because one of the key differences between science publications and humanities and social science publications is the fact that in the humanities and social sciences, you are able to work within disciplines. You are, for example, if you are a sociology student, you can connect sociology with economic phenomena. If you are a law student, you can connect it with gender studies. So that interdisciplinary interplay opportunities are available in social sciences, and I would love to invite anyone who is watching this particular episode who's thinking of writing for the journal, please do try and engage in interdisciplinary research, because interdisciplinary research is both the present and the future. We have moved away from very siloed, one-dimensional researchers. Thank you so much, Bindu, for sharing your thoughts. I think that's a perfect segue for us to move to Sakila. So, Sakila, I think it's important for us to give a clear understanding of what we are expecting from first-time researchers, student researchers, especially those who are still studying at an undergraduate level. I would love to know, considering our vision for the Journal on Asian Legal Policy and Sustainable Development, what are our key expectations from student researchers? What are we looking for from student researchers?
Yes, of course. Yes, Mr. I think what the main point that I'd like to highlight now is the name of the journal is the Journal on Legal Policy and Sustainable Development. That in and of itself is interdisciplinary. So the main objective of this journal is research on legal policy that intersects with other fields. So that is what we are looking for. So and I'd like to also add on to what Mindu said earlier about not to stick to your own field. You can be a law student, that's fine. You can look for other areas that intersect with law, that you think should intersect with law. Like what do you have? What are the inadequacies you see? What are the problems you see? What are the things you think that your law, the legal policy or the legal curriculum should include? Then you can research on those topics where they intersect and then write your article based on that. And also I'd like to highlight that you don't have to be a law student to write for this journal, because last year we did not last year, the year before that, in 2023 we did the South Asian Conference on Higher Legal Education and Sustainable Development. And a lot of the researchers that a lot of the well, the chatter on the conference was they, especially people at Horizon, they called it the law conference because it had the word legal in it. But then every time someone said that, I try to correct them and say, no, this is not a law conference. It's done by law students. That's one thing. But we are trying to intersect law with other fields. So actually, a lot of the researches that we got were not from law students. A lot of the articles and the abstracts that were presented was from a diverse set of individuals, because we have 5 faculties here. We have science, we have marketing, we have IT, we have education, and we have law. So they were the ones who came and presented the researchers, and also the external participants. None of them were law students. There was not a single law student in the external participants. Mostly from agriculture, from in Peradeniya and Kalaniya. So they came up and they did their researches, and their abstracts were on different topics related to their field of study and legal education. So here we also want you to look at your field of study. It doesn't have to be law. You don't have to stick to your field of study, but if you want to incorporate your field of study, you can do that. You don't have to think, I'm not doing a law degree, so I can't write for this. There's no such thing like that. You can incorporate everything. So that is what I want to highlight. And another thing is the current academic space is very restrictive and a bit harsh when it comes to first-time researchers. I think currently the academic spaces, correct me if I'm wrong, they are higher focused mostly on new, on not on new, sorry, on seasoned researchers and seasoned authors for their and their publications. So I think this journal is actually an opportunity that that we are giving to first-time researchers, to first-time publishers. If you are thinking of maybe if you are scared, if fear that your proposal, your research abstract will get rejected based on the fact that you do not have experience is the thing that is stopping you from doing the research, I invite you to write for our journal. This is the first time we are publishing a journal, so you're not alone when it comes to firsts, right? We are all in this together. We are kind of, flying blind here. So not flying blind, but we are all kind of new to this. So you can write to our journal, and because we want the new perspective, we want the raw ideas that are coming from new researchers who are struggling or having second thoughts of publishing. We want your ideas, and I think the current research space is also circulating the same concepts and the same topics, just updating it yearly. I think it's time that we break the stagnant waters, and then bring up new topics and new ideas from new researchers as well. Yes.
So much. And I really love the fact that Sakla highlighted the interdisciplinary nature of this particular journal. Just to add to what he was saying, why legal policy is interdisciplinary, multidimensional, is because the law isn't something that's just written down in an act or a statute. It applies to everyday dimensions of our lives, right? So if you take a look at some of the abstract presentations that were done at the South Asian conference on high legal education and sustainable development, which is more or less the mother conference of this journal itself, you really see that the presentations were so diverse. It ranged from I think there was one on the use of artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence law to even the law relating to farmlands in Sri Lanka. So you really see the spectrum within which research was conducted, or perhaps even ideas for research were presented. So and I think Sakla actually aptly captured the fact that when you are writing, yes, do connect it to the law in terms of the law that's applicable to the area that you're writing on. But more than that, we want to know how is it that we can humanize the law, because the law is often looked upon as this very command-centered thing that's very disconnected from our own human experiences. So this is maybe a first step in terms of suggesting that the law needs to be thought of as a very interdisciplinary sector or field itself. Brilliant. So let's go to our next question. Our next question is directed to Taime. So Taime is going to share a story because she was one of the presenters who submitted a research and abstract presentation at the South Asian Conference on Higher Legal Education and Sustainable Development in 2023. So just to inspire you, Taime, I would love to know what was it like co-authoring a research for the first time? I mean, how did you go about it? What inspired you? How did you make it work? We would love to know the pitfalls and the successes, the challenges, and perhaps the positive impacts of the research itself on you as well as your co-author.
Thank you, Miss. So the research topic that my co-author and I conducted our research on was the topic of integrating menstrual injustice into higher legal education. So the inspiration for this topic came from observing the gap which exists in law and the systemic challenges surrounding menstrual injustice, especially in South Asia, and menstrual health rights, especially in South Asia. So, to be quite honest, when I first joined with my lecturer, Mr. Rehan Pereira, to co-author this article, I was very unsure of my competence, basically, in because I'd never done something of this nature before. So I was very unsure whether I was qualified enough to present at the conference and eventually publish an article. But I must say it was really an amazing experience, and I'm glad I took up the opportunity. And I'm very thankful for the support that was provided to me by my lecturer as well. And one thing I noticed when I began to conduct this research for the abstract submission is that this information that we needed for this submission was not that difficult to access. So one thing I was very worried about was how I'm going to find all these sources and where I'm going to find the information I need, because I'd never done this before.
Yes.
So I'd never done that level of research before. But what I realized was that it's all easily accessible and readily available, and we will be getting into how you can use these sources in your research as well. And currently conducting the next levels of our research, I'm beginning to realize that it's actually quite manageable, especially when you're leaning on the support given by more experienced individuals. So, and you're working with more experienced individuals. So, one thing I want to say to anyone out there that might be feeling inadequate or unsure of your competence simply because you've never written an article before or you've never done any research before, my advice to you is research will always sound quite overwhelming until you take the first step to do it. So we encourage you to join with us and send us your articles to take that first step towards this field.
Amazing. As you can see, one of the key messages that we're trying to communicate here is, as Sari perfectly mentioned, take the first step. I remember the first article that I wrote was also just out of university, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it was on, it was actually on the law relating to the use of nuclear weapons. Now, I was in no way a specialist relating to the law on nuclear weapons, but I was very interested in public international law and the law relating to war and war crimes. So that, it was just purely the fact that I realized I needed to take that leap of faith. So that leap of faith is very important, and we're trying to create an environment here where we are approachable as an academic publication platform, and that we are providing spaces to those who don't consider themselves to be academics but are interested in research. So this is an open invitation to you. So I would like to direct the next question to Bilal Bibula, who is our head of research and policy. It's a bit of a technical question, but I think an important one. So Bilal, do you have any tips for student researchers, undergraduate and graduate researchers in terms of writing their article? How can they sort of better structure, better conceptualize their article?
Sure, Miss. Thank you. First of all, you need to come up with a topic. You should make sure it aligns with our themes and better to be innovative with your topic. Yes. And secondly, you have to start your research. Lots of people do this mistake. They start to write down the article before they finish the research, and then they get stuck in the middle. Right. And they can't continue it from that. So to prevent that, you should first finish the research.
You mean the data collection,
yes,
the secondary desk research, etc.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you should make it simple, clearly put it into simple terms, because you just only have a word count of 4,000 to 5,000.
Precisely.
And you have to structure it very well, or else you will end up not doing it properly. So to do that, first of all, you should have a good introduction, and then come up with your points, and then end it with a very strong conclusion. And also, make sure it aligns with our legal policies of the theme that you picked, and then come up with a practical aspect which you can give us a recommendation how to implement it. So that is a very good thing that you can do in your research, because we need to put it into practical terms, right? And then be methodical. Find a research method which aligns with the topic that you picked. And finally, once you are done with it, you can send it us for the feedbacks. And also make sure you put it according to our guidelines, which we will release it soon. And also, I think this will be enough for you to start the research, right?
Absolutely. I just want to sort of piggyback on what Sadula mentioned about structure. Now, when you're writing a 4,000 to 5,000 word article, you think, well, that's a lot of space, like what do I include? But when you start the writing process and when you dwell into structured analysis, you do realize that 5,000 words isn't a lot of space. So it's really important that you focus more on the critical analysis and the recommendation component, as opposed to focusing a lot on the introduction. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I have done myself as a student researcher, and I see my own students doing, is maybe dedicating 40% of the research space to the, 40% of the research space to the introduction, because introduction is perhaps the most easiest part to write. Yes, there is enough literature for you to write introduction. But when you dedicate 40% of the space to the introduction, what happens then is that you underanalyze in the succeeding sections of your research. So it's really important that you structure it well. Don't be afraid to critically analyze. We want your critical thinking, we want your analysis. Amazing. Thanks so much. Thank you, Dula. Now, I have actually a common question for all four of you, and that's the final question for our conversation. Now, we at the Journal on Asian Legal Policy and Sustainable Development, we encourage primary research. We want you to engage with the community. We want you to conduct participatory action researches. And when you are conducting primary data collection, with the development of science and technology, and with connection being at our fingertips through our cellular phones, it's possible for us to use more innovative ways of collecting primary data. Maybe we can share across certain perspectives on unique platforms, associations, sources that are available to us to collect primary research. Maybe, Sakli, we can start off with you if it is okay.
Yes, a platform that comes to mind that's very easily accessible is peer networks or peer groups. So what I mean by that is basically people who are of the same level or are in the same situation or capacity as you. So if you take, starting from you, you have maybe your class in your university, the where you learn daily, the group of people who are there, who are doing the same degree as you are, then your batch. Then maybe you can go to other students at your uni, maybe your juniors, your seniors, then you can also go to your friends outside of your uni, your friends from school who are now in different unis themselves. You can ask them to spread the word for you, ask them to share across your surveys or whatever collection mode you have, you send it to them, you ask them to share it across to their spaces. You can reach a lot of people that way. Then also you can move to, say, different clubs and societies you're part of. Maybe in your uni, outside your uni, in your wherever you are, like your clubs, maybe even like if you take like very common the road track clubs and Leo clubs or gavel clubs or even just like even the environmental society if you're part of it, that's still a platform, a group of people that you can use to gather data for your research. That is the most, I think, the most accessible and the most readily available platform that is there that you can get research, you can collect data from, and you know that this data is going to be trustworthy because it is from most of the time from people that you might be knowing or have met or been acquainted with. Yeah? So there is a higher tendency for the data to be accurate and not it can be reliable and it won't disrupt your data sets. Yes.
Much. And I think what Sakla mentioned is so important because when you are doing academic research, the difference between, let's say, publishing a thought piece or an opinion or an editorial and doing academic research is academic research always has to be evidentiated. That's a very complex word. What it simply means is you need to prove the argument that you're presenting. You cannot simply believe it because that is your own thought process. So for that purpose, it's necessary for you to supplement it with community level data. And one of the most accessible communities are your peers. And often peers are neglected in research that's carried out by students because you often think your research needs to be proved using data gathered from specialists, from experts, those who are not part of your peer networks. So peer networks definitely are a good starting point for first-time researchers, for undergraduate researchers, and student researchers. Amazing. Maybe next we can go to Tayanzi to talk a little bit about another source that's available to you.
Yes, so one other source that you can use to conduct or gain primary data is approaching institutions like policy think tanks and professional associations, research institutions, and maybe even different departments of universities. And one of the best ways to gain primary data is reaching out to social institutions that are relevant to your topic. So if you are conducting a research on let's say domestic violence or women's rights, reach out to women's shelters, and if your research has anything to do with healthcare, reach out to public healthcare clinics, hospitals, and institutions like that, because these types of institutions contain data that is often not filtered out into the academic and advocacy spaces, because people are quite hesitant to reach out to institutions such as these but they have so much primary information available, and these need to be accessed to provide a more well-rounded perspective in our academic and research space as well. So yeah, those are some other ways of gaining primary data in conducting your research.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of reaching out to these institutions is that you connect academia with policy advocacy and with, let's say, the development sector. One of the biggest challenges, especially in the global south, is the fact that our data exists in silos, right? We don't have strong big data systems, so we tend to either repeat the data collection processes, or we don't really connect the available data silos when we are presenting research. And that makes academic research sometimes conceptual rather than practical. I think Dura mentioned to you the importance of doing research that can be carried forward to the policy world, to the policy sector. And that is why approaching institutions that are already working on the area that you want to write on is very important. Now, Sakila and Tari spoke about physical institutions and physical systems communities that you can approach. Now, we also have online platforms, online communities. So I would love to invite Dula next to talk a little bit about an online source that you can use to collect data for your primary research.
Thank you, Miss. And nowadays, we can use social media to gather information, and it will be a very good platform for you guys to get information to your research. As an example, if we take Instagram, you can share questions through Instagram
Polls,
stories,
right? Yeah.
polls. And if you take Facebook, you can share across surveys, and you can gather information like that, right? So, and moreover, there are profiles like CNA, BBC News that you can get information.
Yes.
And I think social media platform is an important part when it comes to gathering information. One thing to remember is to be cautious when you gather information from these online platforms, because we can't be sure of their credibility. So before you actually implement those information to your research, you should check the credibility.
Absolutely. And I think the credibility component is really important, because the thing with social media definitely is a connective platform to access virtual networks which you otherwise cannot physically access unless you have, let's say, large scale resources. But the thing with social media also is that you don't know who you're engaging with. But while we talk about social media, we want to highlight the fact that you need to be able to filter out what is reliable and what is not very reliable. Especially if you are engaging with feedback collection, if you are engaging with primary data collection that is quantitative. We would advise you to avoid using social media to gain quantitative data and to use it for more qualitative responses that you can integrate into your research itself. Amazing. Thank you so much. Mindu, what are your thoughts of the question?
So it's a powerful tool that I personally find very useful is professional platforms.
Yes.
Online professional platforms like LinkedIn, academia.edu, ResearchGates. The thing is, when it comes to like professional connections in real life, physically it can be a little bit hard to like connect with like industry experts. It can be, yes, exactly, right? It might be the time, maybe like geography, whatnot, right? But when it comes to like professional platforms, it gives us direct access to all these academics, experts, industrial experts. You get not only direct access, but one thing that I personally found out was that it breaks down that hierarchy that there is between academics, because now you have like this direct platform to access, let's say, a professor in Harvard or Oxford, or maybe like a president of a society. You have like that platform to access them, which otherwise might be a bit challenging. And one thing that I really want to tell, like, whoever is watching, don't be afraid to approach these experts. Because personally, what I experienced is like a lot of my friends, they would be like, no, what if they don't respond? What if they think that, like, we are a nuisance? Believe me, 90% of the time, I don't know about the other 10%, but 90% of the time, these experts, they are like more than willing to help a newbie. They're more than willing to help a student, tell them how to, like, to provide them with guidance. Like, for example, Miss Chiranti, an expert researcher, right? She's more than happy to help anyone when it comes to, like, introducing them to research or like answering any question, right? A lot of the lecturers, professors, a lot of like the experts, that's their attitude towards, like, students and new researchers. So please don't be afraid to like put that, connect with that person in LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to like send that message on LinkedIn, because these professional platforms, remember, they are a direct access to all these experts. Use it wisely.
Definitely. And I always say, even if it's a rejection is a response. You'd rather engage with the conversation, right? Amazing. Thanks so much. A sincere thank you to the four of you for sharing across your thoughts. And I think this episode was very important in terms of really humanizing student research. And it was an invitation for you to take that first step, to engage with us, to write to our journal. And next, we will actually, the follow-up episodes, we'll be talking a little bit about the 6 themes that you can write under, and we'll be conducting dedicated episodes with, again, invitees, experts, specialists, and our very own team to dive into writing a research under those themes, the 6 themes that are available. So you can really experience a very diverse conversation from the upcoming episodes. So thank you again to everyone who is watching this episode, and stay tuned for the 3rd episode of the talk show associated with the Journal on Asian Legal Policy and Sustainable Development. Thanks so much.